Hello good people, so I wanted to do this video to introduce GameFrame JavaScript edition. So I've taken the Python GameFrame code and I've ported it over to JavaScript. So as you can see here, I'm running Veggie Samurai in a browser window. So the idea with this one, if you're familiar with GameFrame, you've done it in Python, you'll know this game quite well. It's our first tutorial, and if I click a caret, I've added for the JavaScript version a sound because I need to test audio, but you click a caret and it deletes. And the idea is you need to click all the carets to leave the room. But if you click a bomb,
Do.
well, I've got a nice little dole sound, and the level restarts. So I've got to start clicking on the carets again. So we've got obviously collisions. We can put images on the screen, a background, and it's detecting every step whether the caret or bomb goes to the edges and bounces. So we've got bouncing, collisions, movement, speed, angles. It sets in random direction as well. So we've got all that functionality. So I'll just go ahead and get all these carets, and then I can show you the next level of Joe's Escape, which is our second tutorial normally. And again, if you're familiar with GameFrame on Python, this should look very familiar. We've got lives down here. I've got keyboard input obviously, so if I move Joe over in line with this ghost,
Do.
and he got hit, so lives went down. You can see times going up, so that uses the built-in the timer that I built into GameFrameJS, so it's just the same as the Python version. You can see when I jump, I've got gravity as well, so I've built that in, and collisions with the platforms here. The collisions I'm not 100% happy with just yet. They're like just out by maybe 2 pixels, so I'll have to work on that, but it's all functional. So I'll just get over to the end here, get up to the flag, and when I collide with the flag, that'll end that level, and it's just going to loop back around to Veggie Samurai. So you can see I've got gaming functionality in there. I've got timers, I've got collisions, I've got my objects bouncing around. So yeah, it's all there. So I just want to jump over to the code and just show you how similar it is to my Python game frame, because I deliberately tried to keep it the same as much as possible. I think there's 2 small differences, but I'll just show you how similar it is. Obviously we're using different syntax because one's JavaScript and one's Python. So on the right here, I've got the player for Joe's Escape in the original Python framework, and on the left I've got it in JavaScript. So you can see the syntax is the same, is different obviously, but the concepts are the same. So we import room object, so that's done slightly different, but it's the same concept, same idea. In JavaScript we have to go export class, and we use the extends keyword to inherit, whereas in Python we just say class player and then in brackets the object or the class that we're inheriting from, and we have to call the parent object that we're inheriting for and pass the parameters up. After that, you should see how similar they really are. So I wanted to use all the same names for all the functions in the API. So we've got a player here, this is the image, and it's this.load image or self.load image. So self and this basically refer to the instance. It's the same thing really, just a different word on the 2 different languages. So we've got player left, player right, load image. So we've loaded up the images, and then we use set image to set the image for this object. Now we can set the image later on when we press left and right, and it can change to one of these. Set the depth, the gravity. You can see this is all the same. Handle key events, so listen to the keyboard. So this character is actually going to listen to the keyboard, and then we're going to register collisions with all these objects here. You can see this is all, pretty much one for one, almost exactly the same, which was my intention with building the framework. So you could go from the Python framework and very, very easily start writing games or port all your games into JavaScript if you wanted to run in the browser. Or if you just wanted to learn the syntax of another language, you could do it easily because you'd already know the framework. Now, in this example, I added some sounds. I could have done that over here as well, but I haven't. That's just the original Joe's Escape. But I needed to test audio when building this JavaScript framework, so I just added in the sounds as well. But if I'd done it over here, it would have been the same thing. It would have been load sound, put it into a variable, and when I want to use it, you just play. So handling collisions, same thing. the other object and its type, the other object and its type, check if it's a block. If it is a block, then I'm going to block my own movement. Then I'm going to check the position, the relative position, so the center Y is less than the other's top. Set the speed to 0 and the gravity to 0 and so on. So I can keep going through and reading through all this, but you can see it's all very, very similar. So I've got a sound being played here, but you can see I'm setting the X position to 64, the Y to 15 by 32. That's just to reset the player back to where he started and update the lives. Key press, same thing. Now this is slightly different. In the Python version I used the Pygame set of constants there, key left, and in JavaScript these are the key codes. So I get the keys, list of keys that have been pressed, and I look up the key code. So the key code in Pygame is in those constants. In JavaScript you just look up the words for the different key codes. So which key have I pressed? I'm going to move right, move left, or jump. Now in the Python version I've also got the joypad. If you're doing it in the browser, you really just have to set your operating system to set your joypad to give key events. So it would still, in the browser, still just be calling these key events. So if I pressed left arrow on my keypad, then I'd have to set up my system so that it actually gave the signal of a left arrow on the keyboard. So anyway, moving right, change the X, check if it collides at a certain point. Would it collide 4 pixels down in the Y direction? So am I standing on something? If I'm not standing on a block, then I've got to apply gravity because I've got to drop off the end of the block. Same with the jump. I want to check that there's a block underneath me. If I'm not standing on a block, I can't jump. So you can see how similar the two frameworks are. I'm super stoked that I've been able to do this. You can see the layout of the files as well. GameFrame is where all the code sits that does all the magic. You got your images, your objects, and your rooms, and you can see it's all the same. The only difference really is I've got main controller over here, JS. I've got main controller Py, but being web-based, I need to launch it from a HTML page. So there's an extra file there. So yeah, that's free for everyone to use. I haven't done all the documentation, like the tutorials and stuff. I've literally just finished writing this. But as you can see, it's so similar. It's going to be very, very similar to all the current tutorials. I'll just change the syntax a little bit. And there is a couple of tiny little changes. So for instance, in let's go into objects. In the Python version, we have to have this init file. We don't do that in the JavaScript file. We just add the directory when we import. So that's one less thing you have to do in the JavaScript version compared to the Python version. But if we go into globals, we do have to list all our assets in the globals. So we have to say what images there are and what their extension is. Same with the audio files, which you don't have to do in the Python version. But other than that difference, it's almost exactly the same. You're doing the same function calls. It's the same structure, same everything, just with JavaScript syntax. So you're using curly braces, and semicolons at the end of each line. Oh, there's a problem. There should be some semicolons there. Surprised that was running, unless maybe I've deleted it inadvertently after I ran it in the browser. But yeah, that's a nice little rundown. If anyone wants to be able to use this with their students, if you're a teacher or you just want to create games easily in a web browser, by all means use it. I will put, once I've uploaded it to Git, well, it's uploaded to Git. Once I make it public, I'll put a link in the description of this video. Feel free to use it. If anyone wants to contribute and help with the porting of the tutorial documents from Python to JavaScript, please let me know. That would be awesome if anyone could give me a hand with that. All right, that's it. Cheers.